What's up going on, everyone? My name is Eric O'Brien, the first ever college football recording for the All We Do Is Talk. Uh, I'm going to get my biases out of the way right now. I am a diehard Notre Dame fan. That's who we're going to be talking about today. But as we keep going, I'm going to be doing it by conference. So, probably my next episode will be the SEC. We'll go down their teams, what they recruited. Then we'll go Big 10, Big 12, all the conferences in the Power Five. And then we'll get into some other things as we get closer to the season and all that stuff. So let's start with Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. This is my team, my squad. And honestly, the recruiting for Marcus Freeman is going to be big. He is already shown a power class coming up. 2022, it was like number 7 in the class. Still solid. I mean, there's still some building blocks that can be made from this class in the 2022 that just committed. 1 5-star and Jalen Sneed, who is linebacker, who's going to be electric. His athleticism has been talked about at camps and his All-American game. So, and that's one thing that Notre Dame really needs to build is speed and more athleticism on the sidelines, on wide receivers and secondary, but also getting those athletes as linebacker. And it's shown through Marcus Freeman being a former linebacker at Ohio State. He's really reaching to those linebackers, telling them, I can develop you. I know what we need to do. And that's a big position. And when we get to the 2023 class, there are other linebackers that have been great. The 2023 class is special so far. Just need some offensive commits to really make this a elite of the elite side, because right now there's only 2 commits on the offensive side in the 2023. So, and those still great guys. I mean, the running back, Cedric Irvin Jr., great. I mean, his lineage of his father being a Division I running back is great. But let's get back to the 2022. I mean, I don't know how Tyson Ford was not a 5-star. I think he was at one point by some providers, but some have fallen him down to a 4-star. I really like his tenacity. I mean, he's going to really add depth, at least for next year. He's probably not going to play a lot with all the experience and all Isaiah Foskey coming back and all those guys. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think he'll be one of those guys that next year he'll develop, but he will be a great player for Notre Dame in the years to come as well. Who else we got in this class? The offensive line, Billy Shrouth, I'm a huge fan of. I mean, Notre Dame is offensive line U as it is. And with Harry Heastand coming back from the NFL, coming back to Notre Dame to coach, he's the guy that developed all those lines, like early in the 2015s, all those teams with like Quentin Nelson and all of those boys who are doing big things in the NFL. I mean, that the way hopefully he can develop Blake Fisher more to become a true tackle, and we'll just keep going from there. Another person I really like in this class is Tobias Merriweather. I don't think he enrolled early, so he won't be at spring practice. He'll be there in the summer. But wide receiver is one of the huge question marks that this team has. You see, at least in the 2023 class, because the 2022 class is wrapped up. And Stuckey, the new wide receiver coach for Notre Dame, he's been in the recruiting for those top wide receivers for the 2023 class. We'll get into Carnell Tate here in a minute. But, I mean, I really like his game. I think he can come in, and I think he's probably one of the more likely freshmen to play next year. So that will be huge, and his development will really help continue recruits to come here for wide receiver. All right, so obviously there's about, let's see, how many commits do they have in this class? I don't know. It's a great class, the 2022. I think it's still part of the Brian Kelly recruiting, since Marcus Freeman really didn't pick up, at least for the offensive guys, until he got named the coach. He really wasn't on offensive guys as the defensive coordinator. So the 2023 class is primarily where we're going to talk. today, because this is all Marcus Freeman. This is all his guys. And it's led to so far being the number one recruiting class in the nation. I really like what they're doing on the defensive side. Let's start with Keon Keeley. I mean, if you put on this guy's tape, he looks like an alien. I mean, he is every bit of the word 5-star when you think of an edge rusher coming off the edge on a defensive line. I mean, he is powerful. He just blows past people. Now, granted, some of that is to competition, but he's still Florida kid. So it's seeing Marcus Freeman not just dominate in the Midwest, but he's going to Florida. He's going to California. He's going to these places where other schools may have the advantage, and he's getting them. I mean, Brian Kelly wasn't going into Florida getting a 5-star like Keon Keeley. I'm sorry, he wasn't. He would just be like, oh, that's Florida. They're going to stay in the SEC. They're going to stay down south. No, Keon Keeley was one of the first commits in this class. It's not like he saw what they were doing. It was like, oh, let me join that. He was the driving, like the beginning and the driving force for all of these guys. Drake Bowen, 5-star. He's also coming to Notre Dame to play baseball. I love a multi-sport athlete. Works a bevy of different muscles, like baseball, much of a rotational explosion type thing. It's a little bit different than what you would be doing in football. So his workouts will be a little bit different in the offseason because he's still going to be training to be a part of Notre Dame's what's becoming an elite baseball program. They're top 10 like this year from there's a million different D1 baseball rankings, but almost all of them have them top 10. Some of them have them top 5. And so I think his motor and his instincts are huge. He's also been a driving force on social media for other guys to commit, really driving home that bus. And as a guy who lives in Indiana, lives close to Notre Dame, he really can understand the lifestyle that Notre Dame brings. And he's been a driving force in this draft class. It's been huge. Continuing on the defensive side, pretty much, I think there's only 2 or 3 commits on the offensive side in this 2023 class. So you're getting a lot of defensive help in this. The next one, Peyton, Bowen, safety, 4-star from Texas. Another example of how Marcus Freeman is going into these big market recruiting beds and getting guys. Brian Kelly, again, I'm not trying to harp. I hate what he did. All that stuff. I hope LSU loses every single game for the rest of the time as long as Brian Kelly is there. But good luck, Brian Kelly. Sure, you wanted the SEC, go ahead. But these guys are guys that Brian Kelly wouldn't even try to get these guys, which is just nuts. As a Notre Dame, as a brand, you would expect them to be in on most top guys. But, that's Brian Kelly. We're on to the Marcus Freeman era. The next guy who was a 5-star on most providers, but has dropped. I don't know what that's about. He's put on a lot of weight, but Brennan Vernon, I mean, he was a 5-star. He was one of the lead beginner guys in this class. Another market, Ohio, that this guy would have gone to Ohio State easy if Marcus Freeman wasn't here. I mean, this guy's, I think, huge. I mean, he might be getting to the point where he's too big to be an edge, so he might move to the interior. I think he's like 280 now. I think if I read something right, he's like 280 now. So we'll see, but he's in another like explosive that he will get on the field early in his career, I believe. Him and Keon Keeley with Tyson Ford on that line, that's a scary line. Just the 3 of them. That's scary. All right, another guy, Justin Rhett from Nevada, Bishop Gorman, a powerhouse high school team. Again, Notre Dame usually doesn't even go into these schools and try to get these guys. The past regime would just be like, oh, Bishop Gorman, oh, they're probably not interested in Notre Dame. Well, Marcus Freeman's been saying, I got to show these guys, not just the guys who already are Notre Dame men, but the guys who don't even know they can be. And I think this class really shows that it's not just one type of person, student, all that can get into Notre Dame. There's so many different people that can get into Notre Dame, do well, be successful after football. I mean, the NFL only takes a certain amount of guys, and not even Alabama, everyone is going to the NFL. So telling these guys that the Notre Dame degree can go farther than most schools and telling them that we're still going to be competing for national championships, I mean, I think that's a huge thing for them. Another guy that I also really like in this class, he just committed today, is Preston Zenter. I mean, I just love his athleticism. He plays a bevy of positions. I like guys that have versatility a lot because that adds just natural depth to positions. So Zinter is going to be a linebacker, but he's also a tight end. He's also broken out and been a wideout before. Like the athleticism of these guys to where you can put them in different situations and see what they can do. I mean, it's huge. So those are my highlights for the 2023 class. I mean, the only class right now to have 2 5-stars. I mean, they're blowing it out of the water right now. I know it's just because guys haven't committed yet for those other schools, but still for them to be number 1 right now, I mean, we're getting to the time where these guys are going to start committing. So we're going to find out where the chips lie. So we're going to go to the quarterback for Notre Dame. Apparently Notre Dame's in the top 3 or 4 for Dante Moore in the 2023 class. I believe he is the number 3 ranked quarterback on 247 Sports. Notre Dame needs to bring in one of these top quarterbacks and develop them and get them to the NFL so that other quarterbacks come and they see the development. Because Caleb Williams would probably never even thought of Notre Dame, because why would you come here? Why would you come here as a transferring quarterback? They have no proof that they have been able to develop quarterbacks and put them in the next level. I mean, when was the last decent quarterback to come to Notre Dame that did well in the NFL? Joe Montana, last like elite. Like Jimmy Clausen was like one of the highest rated recruits of all time when he came out. Didn't do well at Notre Dame, somehow got into the NFL, and same results. He didn't do well. Ian Book, my man. I love Ian Book for what he did for the program, but not an NFL quarterback. So you need these NFL quarterbacks and develop them, and then quarterbacks will just become. That's what happened to Clemson. They got Deshaun Watson. He developed. He did well. He won a national championship. Trevor Lawrence came, national championship. DJ Uiagalelei came, not up to the promise of those two, but was still a 5-star, came from Southern California to South Carolina because of the development they have proved they can do for quarterbacks. And that's going to be a huge question for Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator, to keep going on. He needs to start developing these quarterbacks. So then the quarterback recruiting just becomes that much easier when you have quarterbacks that just want to come to Notre Dame. If you develop Dante Moore, get him into a successful time, you don't even have to win a national championship. If he gets to the playoff 2 out of the 4 years, and the offense is clicking, offense is doing great, and you get him to the NFL, that's going to open up another great quarterback that's going to want to come and fill a spot. And another quarterback effect for this recruiting is wide receivers. Wide receivers are going to wait until they see where the quarterbacks in their class are going. It's simple as that. Wide receiver is a very dependent position, and it only makes sense for you as a top wide receiver to wait until you see where these quarterbacks go. Because why would you commit anywhere where you're like, okay, where's the quarterback in my class that I know at least this guy will be there every single year that I'm there? So that's the big question I have. And Carnell Tate has said repeatedly that he is waiting until he sees where these quarterbacks go. And if he's leaning either Ohio State, Notre Dame, he's from Illinois, he's at IMG Academy. Another person, IMG Academy, Marcus Freeman walked in there and said, we're offering you. And it's like Brian Kelly wouldn't even go to IMG. He wouldn't even go there. So, I mean, Carnell Tate there's 3 like top wide receivers in this class of 2023. And then there's a drop. There's 3 elite guys. and Carnell Tate is one of them. And he, according to 247 Sports, he is going to either Ohio State or Notre Dame. And if you get Dante Moore in that class, you get the wide receiver. You're going to get Carnell Tate, I believe. And if you get that, that solves your quarterback and wide receiver with just one commitment in Dante Moore. And apparently Tommy Rees is doing a great job with that recruitment. He's doing outstanding so far. But this 2023 class, if you just land Dante Moore, I promise you more offensive players will want to come to Notre Dame. If you get that quarterback, obviously offensive weapons want to play with a great quarterback. So if you get that, I believe your offensive recruiting is going to fall into place. But until that happens, there's a lack of offensive commits in this class. But I believe it's going to fall our way. I think Dante Moore's a smart kid. He's from Detroit. He's from this area. I believe it's like his top couple schools are like Michigan State, obviously, Notre Dame, and there might be one other one. And smart kid, obviously, if Notre Dame's recruiting him and offered him, you're a smart kid, okay? Like the academics, like that's the first question Notre Dame's got to ask. I wish it wasn't like that to an extent. Obviously, I want them to hold up their academic excellence. But I mean, if you want a national championship to pay for those science labs and all the academic stuff, go win a national championship. And I promise those professors' budgets for their research will be approved. Promise you. But yeah, so this Notre Dame class can really become special in 2023. I think if you get Dante Moore, the sweet zone that you're looking at for a national championship between 2024 and 2026, 2027. I mean, those are going to be the years of the first showing of Marcus Freeman, of the Marcus Freeman era, and showing if it works. I would give him maybe till 2025 until he gets like a full, like all of those guys are his guys. Like there's no more Kelly guys. Not that if you were recruited by Brian Kelly, you're bad or any way. Brian Kelly did a phenomenal job for Notre Dame, brought him out of the ruins. I mean, me growing up, watching the Charlie Weiss era was brutal, but I stuck around. I hung in there, and Brian Kelly really turned it around. But for Marcus Freeman to be doing this, I think is fantastic. He still needs to find a DC, but he's really the DC. I mean, he might want to be more of a manager of all of it, like just as an overseer. So he might want that DC to be calling the play-to-play. But I mean, I think Marcus Freeman's doing a great job. I wanted Marcus Freeman as the head coach, and it's paying off well. I mean, his first regular season game is going to be at Ohio State this coming up year. My life is on the line for that week one. I don't like big week one games at all, especially with no preseason. I mean, you just don't know what you're going to expect from your guys against other competition. And especially as a team that gets the secondary is a question, especially in that Fiesta Bowl where you could see they just picked one guy and just went at him. Going to wide receiver U at Ohio State, and with all those guys that you saw in the Rose Bowl, where they didn't even have their top two guys and they were still lighting it up. That shows the development that can happen at Ohio State for these wide receivers. Marvin Harris Jr. is there. Like, it's nuts. Like, their wide receiver room is always deep, and it's really going to test his secondary. I know Notre Dame got a huge grad transfer from Brandon Joseph to replace Kyle Hamilton. I love it. I love that move, replacing, instead of going into next year with a mystery at safety, you're going in there with another staple. I love it. His athleticism, he's a ball hawk. I mean, he has the most like interceptions by a safety, and I think in the country, definitely the Big Ten, if not the country. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be an interesting era for Notre Dame. I'm glad. Brian Kelly is pretty much all I've known for the past however long he's been here. Since I've been in high school. I'm 25 now. So at least high school, from when they lost to Bama in the national championship. I think that was like his second or third year there. So I'm glad to be coming into a new era where I'm really paying attention, because when I was a fan with Charlie Weiss, like I was too young to like truly understand what's going on. So excited for this next edition for Notre Dame. I think it's going to be huge. I think Marcus Freeman is absolutely the right guy for this job, and his coaching staff pickups have been great. I love all of them, starting with Harry Heastand. He is walking in there as the best offensive line coach in college, I believe. Stuckey at wide receiver, Al Washington at defensive line. I think Marcus Freeman's going to work closely with the linebackers. I just love what they're doing there. The energy around Notre Dame is great. Hopefully, these offensive commits start to roll once hopefully Dante Moore picks Notre Dame. That would be big. And then you'd get the Carnell Tate, you would get the 5-star wideout, you would get the running back possibly, and you always recruit offensive line well. So this is going to be very exciting for the Notre Dame football team, and we'll see where it goes. I'm excited. So we'll see where all this leads. I'll come out probably next week with the SEC, where I'll just go through the recruits and what I think of each one coming up. But other than that, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really want the engagement, really want people to see this and enjoy what we're bringing out. So please give us a look. All right, guys. Thanks.